ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you.
Welcome back, movie fans. Now sit back and grab some popcorn as I rapid fire the most interesting facts from the zombie film that started it all, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, 1968. And as always, if you learned something new today, consider liking the video and subscribing to help support my small channel. This was George A. Romero's feature debut. The character of Ben was originally supposed to be a crude but resourceful truck driver with no specification to race. After Dwayne Jones, in real life a self-serious, erudite academic, auditioned for the part, director and co-writer George A. Romero rewrote the part to fit his performance. The house used for this film was loaned to the filmmakers by the owner who planned to demolish it anyway. The production had to completely clean up the farmhouse to make it appear livable. John A. Russo notes the kitchen was the first room they cleaned, as they felt a clean place to have lunch was the most important factor to having a workable set. The U.S. movie rating system was instituted on November 1st, 1968. This film, released on October 1st, 1968, is one of the last films released in the U.S. without having a rating. Bosco chocolate syrup was used to simulate the blood in the film. The film's first scene, the initial cemetery attack on Barbara and Johnny, was actually the last scene to be filmed in November of 1967. The actors had to hold their breath to avoid visible condensation in the frosty autumn air. During production, the film's title was still being chosen. The working title was simply Monster Flick. Another working title was Night of Anubis, the god of mummification in the ancient Egyptian religion. The title was changed once George A. Romero learned that very few understood the reference. Dwayne Jones was an unknown stage actor when he was cast in the lead role. There are two known deleted scenes that were removed at the insistence of the distributor Walter Reed organization. They include an 8-minute expository scene in the basement between Helen and Harry at the bottom of the stairs, which explains the abrupt jump cut shown, as well as a wide shot of numerous zombies covering the landscape, which was replaced with footage of zombies eating near the end of the film. This footage was presumed lost when a flood damaged the storage facility in later years at Image 10 Incorporated. Actor and co-producer Carl Hardman, Harry Cooper, the father in the basement, also served as a makeup artist, electronic sound effects engineer, and took the still photos used for the closing credits. This was one of the first films to graphically depict violent murders on screen. It is also one of the first films to have a black person as a main character. When the zombies are eating the bodies in the burnt-out truck, they were actually eating roast ham covered in chocolate sauce. The filmmakers joked that it was so nausea-inducing that it was almost a waste of time putting the makeup on the zombies, as they ended up looking pale and sick anyway. At the time of the film's release, any work that did not include a copyright notice was assumed to be public domain. Since the filmmakers forgot to include this notice, the film slipped into public domain. It was not until March 1st of 1989 that a copyright notice was no longer required. This movie was filmed in over a period of 30 days. The film's world premiere was at the Fulton Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on October 1st, 1968 at 8 p.m. by admission and invitation only. The film was met with a standing ovation. George A. Romero was the one operating the camera when the cemetery zombie attacks Barbara in her car by smashing the window with a rock. When Hinsman shattered the window, the rock barely missed Romero. Russell Striner's mother owned Barbara and Johnny's car. The cemetery scenes were shot over 2 days. Someone ran into the car during a break in filming, leaving a dent that was easily visible on camera. Romero rewrote the scene so the car came to a stop after crashing into a tree. The gas pump Judith O'Dea runs into at the beginning of the film was not bolted to the ground. She hit it with so much force, she almost tipped it over onto the cameraman. 200 extras were cast in the parts of the townspeople and zombies. The body upstairs in the house was made by director George A. Romero, who used ping pong balls for the eyes. The music used in the film was in the public domain from a Capitol EMI Records High-Q stock music library. It originally was used in Teenagers from Outer Space, 1959, and cost the filmmakers $1,500. When applying makeup for the actors playing zombies, Marilyn Eastman focused less on a rotting appearance for most of them, instead concentrating on a prominent facial feature that each actor or actress had and making it appear more prominent for an unsettling image. Eastman also played the zombie who eats a bug off a tree. The zombie hand that Tom hacks up with a kitchen knife was made of clay and filled with chocolate syrup. When Ben is nailing wooden boards to the door, small numbers can be seen on them. These were written on the backs of the boards so they could be removed and replaced in between between shots, preserving continuity. Some numbers are visible because some of the boards were nailed on backwards. After Dwayne Jones set the chair on fire, Gary Striner, Russell Striner's brother, was supposed to extinguish the flames and set the chair on fire again to preserve continuity, ensuring that smoke would be releasing from it near the end of the film. At one point, Gary's sleeve caught fire. As he ran in terror, Hinzman, in full zombie makeup, tackled him to the ground and helped extinguish the flames, saving him from major injury. One of the Walter Reed organization's publicity stunts was a $50,000 insurance policy against anyone dying from a heart attack while watching the film. The Pittsburgh police provided personnel and equipment. This is one of the most profitable independent movies ever made. Made for $114,000, equivalent to $977,000 in 2024, it grossed approximately $30 million, equivalent to $257.3 million in 2024, over 263 times its budget. Other conflicts of budget and the era in which the film was made included shooting on 35mm print, but only having equipment to edit it on 16mm. The crew had to transfer all the footage to 16mm before they could work on editing it. John A. Russo also notes they rarely had time or film for more than one take on any shot, and they had no way of checking it. He had to trust George A. Romero was getting every shot just right. The sound was also mixed without seeing the picture. He also notes late in production, after they had picked up additional investors, there was a discussion about reshooting in color what they had already shot in black and white. They had already shot roughly a week's worth of filming, and they would have to go back to 16mm if they switched to color. All of this factored in to their decision to stick with the black and white. The main house did not have a true basement, but a dirt potter's cellar, had no long staircase leading down to it. As a result, the basement scenes were filmed in the editing studio's cellar in downtown Pittsburgh. Originally, one idea for the script called for Harry Cooper to die from the gunshot wound received from Ben before his daughter became a zombie, which would have resulted in Helen coming down the stairs to find him eating their daughter, rather than the daughter eating him. It was decided that this would probably be far too disturbing and graphic, and was changed back to the idea of the daughter becoming a zombie first. George A. Romero chose Evans City Cemetery for the first scene, largely due to its isolated location. The crew didn't want to be interrupted by onlookers or police inquiring about their presence. The cemetery, on top of a hill in a heavily wooded area, allowed the privacy. Ironically, it has become a popular tourist attraction and fan destination in the decades since its release. S. William Hinzman and Carl Hardman, two of the original $300 investors, were cast due to a shortage on available talent. Another investor was a butcher who provided some blood and guts. Though the cast and crew had nothing but positive things to say about Dwayne Jones, Marilyn Eastman would later refer to him as a tortured individual due to American racial tensions during the late 60s. Carl Hardman became good friends with Jones, and Jones's death in 1988 affected him greatly. He would often become emotional when talking about Jones and believed he received a raw deal in life due to the nation's racial tensions. George A. Romero originally hired Tom Savini to do the makeup effects in this film. The two were first introduced when Savini auditioned for an acting role in an earlier film that never got off the ground. Romero, remembering that Savini was also a makeup artist, called Savini to the set of his horror movie. Savini was unable to do the effects because he was in the U.S. Army, serving as a combat photographer in Vietnam. Savini later appeared in Dawn of the Dead 1978 and directed Night of the Living Dead 1990. Though the radiation of a detonated satellite returning from Venus is theorized to be the cause of the dead rising and attacking the living, according to the filmmakers, the actual cause is never determined. George A. Romero has readily admitted that Herc Harvey's Carnival of Souls 1962 was a big influence in the making of this film. The farmhouse didn't have running water, and John A. Russo, George Romero, and production designer Vincent D. Cervinsky had to stay at the house each night and settle for cat baths every morning. Russo remembers having to boil water on the stove and sleeping on cots. He remembers finding Cervinsky on the porch one morning, pouring water into sheep intestines to make them more cinematic. Romero said that the moment they finished editing the film in Pittsburgh, they put the reels into the cans, threw it into the trunk of the car, and drove straight to New York City that night in hopes of having it screened at any willing theater. According to Romero, the film was originally 10 minutes longer, but the distributor pressured him to cut it down. Though silly putty and other basic special effects techniques were used, most of the body parts the zombies are eating were real internal organs and bones from animals, and a lot of the actors playing the flesh-eater roles were friends in advertising and clients who John A. Russo and George A. Romero were in contact with. It is never explained why the dead body found upstairs in the house never comes back to life. Columbia Pictures was the only major Hollywood studio interested in distributing this film, but eventually passed because it was in black and white at the time, when movies had to compete with the newer color televisions. Columbia did distribute the 1990 color remake Night of the Living Dead. American International Pictures considered releasing the film, but wanted George A. Romero to shoot an upbeat ending and add more of a love story subplot. The film was released shortly after the MPAA's rating system was implemented. As a result, children were able to see this very graphic horror film in theaters. A review by critic Roger Ebert included his concerned observations of the children watching with him and being traumatized by an adult horror story they were completely unprepared for. Allegedly, George A. Romero never did his own laundry during filming. He just bought new clothes instead. When the writers decided to base the film on zombies, they brainstormed about what would be the most shocking thing for the zombies to do to people and decided on cannibalism. Bill Cardile, who plays the television reporter, was indeed a local Pittsburgh TV celebrity. He hosted a horror movie program on Channel 11 and occasionally reported the news. George A. Romero saw very little profit from the film. Due to his lack of knowledge regarding distribution deals, the distributors walked away with practically all of the profits. Barbara and Johnny arrived to the cemetery in a 1967 Pontiac Le Mans two-door hardtop. After being shot by Ben, Cooper stumbles down into the basement in order to die next to Karen, his daughter. As he had shown no redeeming qualities throughout the film, his final moment was Romero's way of showing that Cooper had at least some form of humanity and decency inside him, seeking to spend his dying moment with his daughter. It's a controversial topic for sure, but I personally prefer the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead. Let me know in the comments which one you like the most. A super big thanks to all those who joined in to watch, and I'll have more trivia videos on the way. So until then, keep watching that cinema and stay cool, guys.
Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire.